Oh, yeah, sorry.
Who remembers the weather last Friday? Dave, what's the weather last Friday?
I don't know, you're actually asking.
Ellie,
Too cold and bucketing down rain. Yeah.
in some places it was. It was a raging nor'wester last Friday. I was on an aeroplane and I flew to Wellington. I don't know, how many of you have landed in Wellington? Yeah. I mean, I've flown quite a bit, and I'm usually a pretty okay flyer. But this day, we were coming in on final approach, the plane was sinking, and it went on its side, and we could see all the rocks out the window, and people they were screaming, you know, and looking around, you could see the fear in their eyes. Now, my lovely family bought me a sports watch for my birthday, and it tells me my pulse rate. I looked at my pulse at that point, and I was doing 155. That's pretty fast, because my resting pulse rate is usually 45. I've got quite a low resting pulse rate. But I was thinking afterwards about this word, because I want to talk about evaluations tonight. But this took me back to how I used to be when I would give presentations. My pulse rate would be screaming along at 155. And that's how I started out when I first came along here to Toastmasters. It's been 5 years that I've been doing this. And so tonight I want to give you an educational on how we evaluate. Because I think the evaluations that we do in this club are the most important thing that we do. So these days, when I go out to speak, I don't get so worried anymore. I don't have all that fear kicking in. And really what carries me through is screeds of evaluations that you all have given me over the years. So how has that worked? So when we evaluate, it depends on the person you're evaluating. If you've got someone who's fresh to Toastmasters and they're in that state with pulse at 155, the type of evaluation you want to give that person is somewhat different to the evaluation that you would give someone who's been coming for a couple of years. You know, when we talk about evaluations, we need to think about effective evaluations. So what would an effective evaluation be? And I might just back up the truck a wee bit actually. For those who are new here tonight, the evaluations are the second half of the evening. So the first half of the evening is someone gives a speech. Second half of the evening, someone tells you, or gives you some feedback. And really that's the crux of an evaluation. And you're going to see it later on. So, you know, we need good quality feedback. We need suggestions to improve. And we need, self-esteem. We need to build people's self-esteem. Now, I want to talk about something called CRC. I'm sure there's plenty of you here that have heard of CRC before, but maybe raise your hand if you haven't heard of CRC before. Aha, got one at the back. The CRC, the C stands for commend, the R is recommend, the C is commend. The idea is that you wrap up whatever you want to say to improve in good stuff. So you might say, I really liked, and you say what you liked, then for next time I would recommend. And you say, but a great thing that you did was nice. Now that's the format where we give our feedback. The theory is that as a listener, as someone who's about to get feedback, if you just get recommendations, you close off. You get defensive automatically. If you get recommendations and then commendation, if you get commendations then recommendations, you're open to it. You're like, yeah, I did nail that bit. Okay, yeah, I'm going to work on that. Here we go. But again, it all depends on the person you're evaluating. If you're at your first speech, you probably don't want the recommendation at all. For that person, you just want to come back because their pulse was going 155 and they were just scared to get up there. For me, I remember the first speech I gave, I came along, I didn't know anyone here, and they called me up to do a table topics. I lasted 30 seconds, and for the last 10 seconds, I stood there with nothing to say, and people were calling out ideas at me. So, why don't you say this? You know, and my pulse rate was through the roof, and all I needed when I sat down and when I got my evaluation was, you nailed it, buddy, come back. That's all I needed to hear. That's an evaluation for someone who starts. But then, as you go on, and you need different things. You need to grow, you need to be called out on certain things you're doing. Which brings me to a way of giving these recommendations. And the recommendation is best given by examples. If you, as the reviewer, as the evaluator, are taking notes and you can notice something and actually refer to it with the language that the person used, and if you can come back up here and you can actually demonstrate the way it happened, and then if you can model the way that we should do things, then you're nailing it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I see some heads nodding. I think of JP when I think of this example. You've all seen JP stand here, and he goes, oh, you know, you've got this thing where you go, and he's modelling, you know, oh yeah, I do remember, he's always got a point, you know. and then he models to you how it should be. He says, well, really what we should do is put a pause in. We should put our pauses where it makes sense. So it's that way of modelling or noticing and giving a rock solid example of what you saw and then modelling how it should go. That's on the button. I would offer in this place, in the commendation space, if you know something about the person you're evaluating, and you know that they've been working on something already, so maybe it's Gary, and Gary's really been having a hard time with his arms. And now, unknown to everyone else, Gary's been coming along and he hasn't been using arms. And if you're sitting there and going, I remember that Gary has been getting feedback about arms and now he's not doing it. If you can add that in, that is gold dust for Gary. It's like, yes, someone has listened and someone has really noticed that I've changed. Often when you fix things like that, when you fix something like that, it just goes unnoticed. But if you can notice, that is on the button. Which brings me back to this motivation part. Because when you start here, you are in this space and you are vulnerable and you're like Tim on the aircraft about to land. Do you think I wanted to get back on an aircraft after I'd landed that day? I was not happy. And that's like someone who comes along and does table topics for the first time. They come along and they last 30 seconds and they just feel like they've utterly failed. Our job as an evaluator is to motivate them to come back. And if we miss that opportunity and we don't catch them, we don't build them up, then we will lose them altogether. I was so pleased that I came back. Because when I started 5 years ago, I was terrible at this, I was nervous as hell, but now everything I've learned through these evaluations that's come back to me, I use every single day in my job. So evaluations are right at the heart of what we do. They are the sharp end of what we do, and how we motivate people and how we build them up and how we mould them into amazing speakers. And it's our collective job as these evaluators to build up these people each time and to give them those little gems of feedback. And it's probably the most important thing that we do at Toastmasters. But gee, it works. It really works. And if we get it right, it changes people altogether. So, Madam Toastmaster, that's all I want to say.